Why are we still here? Just to suffer.
Hey everyone, Bacon here. Things have happened, and they're not looking good. So in the interest of keeping you all up to date with the news, here's a follow-up video to the video I made a couple of days ago. If you guys haven't watched it, the link is down in the description. It gives some important context to this whole situation, so I highly recommend you watch it first if you haven't seen it yet. But let's jump into all the stuff that has happened since, and explain why there is now a Reddit post with nearly 40,000 upvotes at the time of recording, urging people not to buy Subnautica 2 in the main Subnautica subreddit. For a brief overview, we learned that Krafton, the publisher that owns Unknown Worlds Entertainment, the studio behind Subnautica, is replacing the entire leadership, meaning Ted Gill, Charlie Cleveland, and Max McGuire, with Steve Paputzis as the CEO effective immediately. And that was that. A big shock to the community. Well, on the 5th of July, Charlie posted quite a long tweet onto Twitter, explaining some of the history of the studio and his take on the whole situation, at least a little bit. And while there are many interesting things in this, I want to specifically point your attention to this paragraph. Quote, "So you can see why, for Max, Ted, myself, the Unknown Worlds team, and for our community, the events of this week have been quite a shock. We know that the game is ready for early access release, and we know you're ready to play it. And while we thought this is going to be our decision to make, at least for now, that decision is in Krafton's hands. And after all these years, to find that I'm no longer able to work at the company, I started stings." Now from this, it seems pretty clear that this was not a massively premeditated decision. It doesn't look like this was them deciding to leave, and more like them being booted out. Well, the situation continues. Initially, it seemed that the game was still on track to be released this year, and people in their Discord, even the moderators, kept reiterating that information. Well, just yesterday, an article came out for Bloomberg by Jason Schreier, announcing, quote, "Krafton delays Subnautica 2 game ahead of $250 million payout." And this is where things go from bad to looking really sketchy. Now, Jason has a somewhat accurate history of predicting these delays, and he is, of course, right. Only hours later, the official confirmation came out, along with a handy YouTube gameplay teaser. But it is when you begin to read between the lines of the article that some things begin to smell very fishy. Now, when Krafton initially purchased Unknown Worlds, there was some sort of an agreement that a $250 million bonus would be awarded to the studio if they hit certain revenue targets by the end of 2025. Now, clearly from the post by Charlie, the studio was planning to release the game into early access this year, and thus they would most likely hit that bonus, which would be not only amazing for the future of the studio, but obviously for every single individual working in it that would be able to get a share of that for their hard work. To quote directly from the article, "By delaying Subnautica 2 into next year, the company is unlikely to hit these targets, and therefore, the employees may not be eligible for the payout." Unknown Worlds leadership was planning to share the money with the staff, which would, again quoting, range from hundreds of thousands of dollars to 7 figures for some people. But I'm sure you're already beginning to smell what stings here. Publisher is due to issue a massive payout to a studio if they hit a certain revenue target. Studio is ready to publish a game. Publisher decides to fire the entire leadership, replace them with their own guy, and delay the game to the next year so that no payout has to happen. Okay, yeah, so that doesn't look good, but Bacon here intercepting. The video was up for 30 minutes, and of course, Krafton had to go out and put an official statement out. So let's take a look at that. This is super fresh from their perspective. What they say is that the original leadership failed to reach the goals in 2024, and Charlie and Max refused to return to their roles as game director and technical director, instead wanting to focus on other projects. Supposedly, this absence of leadership resulted in issues with the game, and, quote, "the current early access version falls short in terms of content volume." On top of that, Krafton says, quote, "They have committed to fair and equitable compensation for all remaining Unknown Worlds employees who have continuously and tirelessly contributed to Subnautica 2's development." Look, this situation is about as messy as they come. I'm sorry for pulling the original video. I didn't want it to just sit up there with misinformation and just a pinned comment, so it's getting a re-upload. I really wish we could just be excited for the game and not have to deal with all of this right now. Which side you want to believe is totally up to you guys. That's it for the news, guys. I am super sorry that I cannot have anything more positive for you this time. I really don't like making negative videos. It's not what I want to base the channel on. It just happens to be so that we're going through a rough one right now. So thank you so much for watching. A huge thank you to Sander and Krayenda for being members. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you very much. And if you guys liked the video, maybe consider leaving a like, commenting, subscribing, or joining the channel to help support it. I'm gonna see you in whatever next video I make, and I promise I'm gonna try to make it a more fun and positive one. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.